The Trump administration just filed a reply in a voting rights case in Massachusetts that may show a change in how the administration is handling executive orders. I'm Brian. I make videos about civics and law. Please comment, let me know how you feel about changes in the use of executive power, or whether you feel they have changed in recent years. Also, like, follow, share, get this video out there so people will see it. It's a civics video. People won't watch it unless you interact. You can also download any files that I reference in my shared documents file. You can find that link in my profile. And thank you, Kevin, for your support. Okay, this was not an exceptionally exciting filing, but it does hint at something a little bit broader and a little bit more interesting. So let's talk about it. We're going to start with something that happened a couple of weeks ago. There was a procedural case where the Supreme Court was evaluating the constitutionality of an executive order. And we got two written opinions on this issue, one from Justice Sotomayor and one from Justice Jackson. And while they agreed on certain things, they divided on the final outcome. Now, they essentially agreed that the underlying sentiment of the executive order was facially unconstitutional. But they disagreed on whether or not the executive order itself was unconstitutional, and at the time I explained that I thought they were kind of walking on either sides of the path and sort of giving the administration a warning and working sort of in tandem. Justice Jackson on one side said, hey, what you're saying here is facially unconstitutional, it should be overturned. Justice Sotomayor on the other side said, what you're doing here is facially unconstitutional, but it's an executive order, so it's really just a suggestion to your cabinet. And everything you say to do, you say, do this, but, stay within the law when you do it. And between those two pieces of information, what you've essentially done is nothing. And so Justice Sotomayor essentially says, while you're encouraging unconstitutional activity, you're not ordering anything. This is essentially just a tweet. This is basically your opinion. So you haven't done anything. There's nothing really to overturn. And at the time I said, I felt like the two justices were giving the administration a warning. As long as you stay on this side of the line, you're okay, but don't cross it. And note that what you have suggested here is unconstitutional, and you cannot do that stuff. But while I think there were supposed to be two lessons there for the administration to hear, I think they only heard one of them. And I think that's what we're seeing in this new filing that came out in this voting rights case in Massachusetts. Rather than hearing the second part, hey, this is unconstitutional, you can't do that, they only heard the first part, which is, as long as you don't actually say anything, as long as anything you say comes with a caveat, but don't break the law, and it comes in an executive order, which isn't technically law, you haven't done anything wrong. And this seems to have given the administration sort of a carte blanche to do whatever they want. So State of California v. Trump, which is 25-CV-10810, is another one of these cases. It's over an executive order. It's related to voting rights. And that's, incredibly important, right? Voting rights, key to a democracy. And a bunch of state attorneys general are saying this is unconstitutional. The executive order says to do all this stuff that is, that violates the Constitution. Okay, but in this response that the government filed on Friday, they say, well, the Supreme Court said we could do this, and all this is an executive order, so it's not really law, and everything we told people to do, we told them to do within the law. So even if we said, do something unconstitutional or illegal, we said, do it in a legal way. And so there's nothing you can come after us for. We haven't done anything wrong. And honestly, I don't know if they're correct or not. Can the president technically say whatever he wants as long as he doesn't actually violate the law? Maybe. But on the other side, does this give our executive branch unlimited power to set up all of these executive orders that are all facially unconstitutional and then kind of wait until the last minute till they've eroded a bunch of protections and then actually start implementing them? Is this essentially a manner of presetting all the unconstitutional attacks in the hopes that at some point, some or all of them will become constitutional? Or if not actually constitutional, somehow within the powers of the president to execute. So we are dealing with two competing issues here. On the one hand, do we want to restrict the essentially free speech of a president, especially one that was hired for his willingness to kind of say whatever was on his mind, which, like him or not, is one of the main reasons that people voted for him. So for the court to step in and say he's not allowed to do that, especially when he does it without the power of law, without the force of law, does feel like they are stepping on the toes of a lot of voters. On the other hand, allowing the president to spread something extra slippery all over the slippery slopes feels problematic. And the law being a logic-based process, we do consider things like slippery slopes, logical fallacies when we are deciding what is and is not valid. But of course, we always have to balance these things. We don't get to just pick one that makes sense because we like it and ignore the others because we don't. Well, I don't get to do that. Some people have robes. They're allowed to do that, so we'll see what happens. But I would be surprised if we don't see this discussion and this argument coming up more and more in future cases, and seeing executive orders start to push more and more limits, but with a little caveat at the bottom that says, do it within the law. So keep your eye open for that and see if this is something that starts to trend as the administration tries to test their boundaries. Okay, thank you guys for watching. Please interact with this video so people will see it. Kevin, again, thank you. If anybody else wants to support me, you can go to my profile and click on my link, and there are ways to do it there. Thanks a lot, everybody.